Beyond the Scoreboard, the Lawrence County SportsNet weekly podcast delivered by Penn Ohio Bottled Water. Coming to you here from the LCAP studios. Here for our Week 0 recap, Week 1 preview show. Before we get everything up and running here for the Week 1 preview, unfortunately we have some unfortunate news we do need to pass along. A death of a high school student at Shenango High School Tuesday evening. Because of his untimely passing, the school has decided to now cancel their game for Friday against Elwood City. But right now, the only thing that is important, everybody send their thoughts, send their prayers, if you choose to do so, to the entire Shenango community, the Shenango all the athletics programs, everybody in a absolute terrible moments right now. So we have to give a moment of silence in memory and in mourning for the student at Shenango High School. But as I know they would want, the show must go on, and we will try to give a little bit of light during a dark hour. And that means that we bring in the entire crew coming back, basically. The crew that matters. Lee Moan, he's staying far away. I'm James Dotson, and I get to chat again here with Tim Continenza and Eric Thomas. 1 week in the books. Gentlemen, we saw some awesome games on Friday night, Tim. A high-scoring affair for you up in Neshannock.
It was. It was a game where just about everything was in play. We had turnovers. We had big plays. We had 4 touchdowns of 55 plus in the air. We had a 80-yard run, basically. So, yeah, it was an amazing game for 3 quarters. It was like who had the ball and what were you going to outdo what just has been done. And then the fourth quarter came, and we had some defense show up. And basically, in a game where you had a couple turnover on downs in the fourth quarter, and the kind of clock ran away, and Neshannock got the lead late at the end of the third quarter and was able to hang on for the victory. But it was an amazing game between two schools who, if they continue to put up points like that, it's going to be really dynamic all season long.
Yeah, Neshannock 42-37 was the final score of that one. You said the defense came in the fourth quarter after... doing a quick math, what is that? 79 points in the first 3 quarters, none in the fourth quarter. Eric, that's the game we had. We had the defense the entire game. The 48 minutes wasn't enough. Had to go into overtime, and Elwood City able to hold on and get the 14-7 win over Laurel.
Yeah, and just kind of an up and down battle between those two teams. I mean, it looked like for a minute that Elwood City was going to run away with that thing early, and then they couldn't. There was a big stand near the end of the half. They threw an interception right at the end of the half, and then Laurel, who they had hit big plays here and there in the game, but nothing really that the big chunk play for a score. They finally get the ball down inside the goal line. They can't convert that. Probably, knew at that point they were running out of time. And remember, the thing that stuck out to me the most was Laurel had to burn timeouts early in the second half. So they had no timeouts. Basically, I think they had 1 left when they got the ball back in the 48th minute. And the reason they got the ball back was because of a complete special teams meltdown with Elwood City and just a bad punt opportunity with Chris Smiley, and it didn't go their way. He tried to quick kick it. It goes right up the backside of a lineman. Laurel gets the ball half the field, 1 play, a personal foul on top of that. I mean, it just looked like it was all unraveling for Elwood City, and then Laurel capitalizes. And then in overtime, the missed point after, there's a flag for running into the kicker, the redo, they get the score off of that, and then Laurel Lucas Santini throwing the interception. I mean, just so many ebbs and flows in that game, and a back and forth game, just really begging for somebody to take control of it. And the fireworks all happened in the last, 12 minutes or so. Not really 12 minutes and a quarter, but overtime in the last minute or so of regulation.
So let's get in one of our features that we're going to do. We want to showcase the plays of the game, the Mayo Chiropractic plays of the game that we had from last game. Let's start with that Elwood City game. You mentioned it. After Elwood City gets their touchdown in overtime, they are able to force the big turnover. Luciano Gagrick able to get the interception.
Santini the snap. Santini looks to throw. Santini over the middle. It is intercepted, and Elwood City's going to win it.
Gagrich.
Luciano Gagrich in the end zone. Santini tried to thread the needle and fit it between two defenders, and Gagrich was right there to pick it off, and Elwood City escapes with a 14-7 win in overtime. What a game to start the 2024 season.
Incredible. Bouncing back. Gagrich has been coming up the gut hard all night, Eric.
Job done getting that early, or not the early turnover, after being all game. Eric was kind of one of the guys enforcing in the backfield, able to get that big interception. But also got to give a quick shout out to Elijah Palmer McCain, who set a couple of records, all-time program records in that game as well.
Only had one big run, and that was the big one in the second half. I mean, otherwise, he was pretty much neutralized. And, you know, he had problems last year against the bigger physical lines defensively that he played against. Beaver Falls was one of them. Mohawk gave him problems last season, too. He struggled for the most part at times. Really, I mean, for the big chunk of the game he did, except for the one run that he had that he tore off for 76 yards. And, you know, credit, if you watch that play, that interception at the end of the game, Gagrich, like, he makes such a great play, but he also basically baits Santini into thinking he has that window and that he's sort of trailing or shadowing the play, and then just steps right in front of the ball. And Santini, I'm not sure a veteran quarterback sees that. I mean, you really have to, in the moment, kind of feel for Lucas Santini, because he's just doing what he thinks he can do and what he's capable of, and throwing that ball over the middle. And Gagrich did a great job really kind of disguising himself and then step right in front of it to win the game.
Tim, you had a big interception in your game as well. Let's take a look at Dom Cubelis, one of his 3 touchdowns, 3 different ways for the Lancers there on Friday night.
Notice, Fadden in the pistol, takes the snap, he's looking downfield, he'll fire towards it, has Logan open, but it's stepping in front and intercepting the ball for the Shannock is Sabelis as he takes it all the way to the house. Don Cabelas does it again. Wow.
Bellis does it again. Tim, it feels like we've been watching it for 3 years, haven't we?
We really have watched this young man just continue to grow as an athlete on all the different fields, and especially on the football field. And, you know, it's kind of similar to what Eric was talking about in your game, where he was just kind of, you know, hanging out, not playing really center field, but in a sense, you know, disguising his defense. And then when he seen that ball, he just stepped right in front of it. And from that point on, it was a race down the sidelines, and it was no question that Dom was going to win that race and really give the momentum back to the Lancers, and really it was the kind of the game winner right there.
Yeah, it was. After being down 9 at half, that cut the lead down. He also had earlier 85-yard kick return for a touchdown, and a touchdown reception as well. He got the Maley Chiropractic play of the game. Anthony Aiken will get the MVP insurance of the game. He's the one who had the game-winning touchdown on that last play.
Yeah, in the end of the third quarter.
Yeah, last play of the third quarter, and finally was able to escape. And I think we're going to see both of those guys doing some dangerous things this year for the Lancers.
The Lancers look offensively loaded. It should be a lot of fun.
But they were not the high scorers of the week. And in fact, our team of the week that we're going to announce, Newcastle, after going 1-9 each of the last 2 years, they start on the right end for them, a 49-47 win. They hold on. They give up a touchdown. After coming from behind in the fourth quarter, they give up a touchdown with 4 seconds remaining, but getting the interception in the end zone on the 2-point conversion to secure that win, and some gaudy numbers, to say the very least, in that one from the Shannock. How about Kyrell Harris with 4 touchdowns? Chase Lemon, all 5'8" of them with over 100 yards. He had the interception to seal it as well. I don't know, Eric. This Newcastle team, they have the weapons. They've shown already they can put points on the board. Defense obviously is going to need some help, but that's a strong start to the year. 1
win last season, already 1 win this season. I think the quote that stuck out to me the most, going back and reading some of the things from Friday night, Freddie Mazzocco saying he really talked to his team about not folding in games and trying to beat that point across to him in the preseason. That's huge. I mean, we said it last week during our initial show about changing the mindset of the program. And sometimes I think coaches, when they step into a program and it's somebody else's players, it's, you know, he knows these kids obviously from being around in the community and everything, but these aren't guys that he's coached, or these aren't guys that have come up in his junior high and his grade school program. I think it really speaks to the level of coach when you can go to another program and you can take guys that you have never had at all come through your system and try to turn that around. And when he is in a position right now to do something to put him at another level when it comes to WPIL coaches. And that's if he gets this team to 500 or better, if he gets this team in the playoffs, and he's doing it with his system, with not his players. You always hear that thing about college.
In that conference
especially, right. And, you hear that all the time about college guys. They go to a new program and, they got to basically re-recruit the team because it's not their level of players. It's different in college because you can go out and get 10 new basketball players or, 10 or 15 new guys in the transfer portal for a football team. High school, you're whatever's in the hall at the building is what you have. And for him to take somebody else's team that they put together over a period of time and get that point across to him in game one, I think speaks volumes. And that team, the sky's the limit for him for sure.
Kyrell Harris, 3 passing touchdowns. Kayvon Gardner showing off his legs, 173 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns, showing the speed all over the field. For sure, we're going to have fun watching them. The other team we're really going to enjoy watching from up north, Wilmington, a 28-7 victory. Give a shout out to Jamie Miller. He had a trio of touchdowns, including a bizarre it wasn't a blocked punt. It was a punt kind of similar to the one we saw at Elwood City, just a low line drive, barely got over the line. He caught it as an up man, like 5 yards from the line of scrimmage, made 2 men miss, and ran 40 yards for a punt return touchdown. Probably the shortest punt return touchdown that you'll see this year. But that Wilmington team, impressed with what they did on the ground. They also held their opponent in Greenville, Tim, to just 40 yards rushing. Yeah, it's Wilmington football.
It is Wilmington football. It's kind of going back to what Eric just talking about, culture. And that is Wilmington. The Hounds have culture. They know exactly who they are and what they want to achieve each week. And it's been drilled into them year after year after year after year. And you know what they are capable of doing. It's going to be a challenge each week, but this is a team that can surprise just about anybody. I shouldn't say surprise, but come up on top against almost anybody. And, it should be an interesting challenge this week across the border.
And they're playing against Hubbard. We'll preview all the games coming up later on in our podcast here today. The final game that we had, remember, Union played a second scrimmage. They did not play last week. Shenango losing to New Brighton 9-7, and special teams, honestly, is what killed Shenango here because their defense didn't allow a single point, guys. It was a safety in the first quarter. The ensuing free kick is returned for a touchdown. There's your 9 points right there. They end up losing the game 9-7. They also had another kick return for a touchdown in that to start the second half that was called back on a penalty. They're going to have to clean up a little bit on the special teams for sure, Eric. But in the end, the offense had opportunities. They got into plus territory most of the game. They just couldn't quite capitalize enough and punch it in.
No, and now you got to really worry about where their mind's going to be when they can finally get back to football, just with everything going on there right now. Only 89 yards on the ground rushing, and we said it last week too about their season, and you have to win early in the season. That was a game that they had to win last Friday night. I know it's a little bit deeper than football right now, and their minds they probably don't even care about what had happened last Friday until they can get back to business here, hopefully next week. But they really needed to come out with a win last week. It's going to be tough looking up at the rest of that division the remainder of the season. You worry about the emotional makeup, the mental makeup of this team now going forward. But football is probably going to be cathartic for them. Mm-hmm. So when they get back out there in the field, whether it be over the weekend or Monday when they're back in school, and normalcy almost is there, and then it kind of comes back in full. You hope that they can refocus. You hope that they can pick up a win here and there. The program, the community needs it right now, and maybe that'll recharge them. Let's see how they handle this next. I'm not sure who they have after. I think it's Mohawk and then so they get Mohawk next week. Not going to be easy, but they come out, they fight, they play some spirited football. I'm sure that they're going to be ready to go and try to get things back to normal after what's been a really tough couple hours here.
There's your LCAP recap from last week's Week 0 games here on our Beyond the Scoreboard podcast. It's brought to you by Penn Ohio Bottled Water. Call Penn Ohio Bottled Water for delivery of your 3 or 5 gallon water cooler systems, or a case of the bottles delivered straight to your home or work. We're going to step aside for a moment. When we come back, we're going to have our first case of Off the Bench, as we're going to bring in Coach Michael Bonjavingo from Neshannock High School to have a quick chat here with the crew. It's the Lawrence County SportsNet podcast, Beyond the Scoreboard, here at lcsportsnet.com, powered by LCAP.
for calling Axe. Where can we take you today?
To work, to the store, to Grandma's house. Axe can get you there, but it's much more than a ride. It's a joyride.
I'm helping people. I'm getting them out of their house. I'm taking them to their doctors, to the grocery store.
They say I'm entertaining. Okay, we laugh, we joke, we sing, we tell stories.
They're like family to us.
Even if it's the same day, to schedule your joyride, call Axe today.
Don't get left out to dry. Call the Penn Ohio Bottled Water Company for the fastest and most efficient bottled water delivery service in the area. Penn Ohio offers bottled water ranging from 16.9-ounce bottles to 5-gallon jugs, perfect for your next event or office water cooler system. Also, don't forget to ask about their custom labeling options. Visit PennOhioBottledWater.com for more information and to get a quote on their delivery services. Whether it's at home, in the office, or on the sidelines, Penn Ohio has you covered.
Week 0 in the books. Game number 1 in the books. We need to get rid of this week 0 thing.
Yes, we do.
We've had enough of it. What we haven't had enough of is Neshannock football. I know Coach Bonjavengo certainly has not had enough of Neshannock football. 1-0. How about that to start your career as we bring in Coach Michael Bonjavengo? Coach, thanks for joining us first off. How are we feeling right now? Maybe.
Talk a little bit. I'm feeling pretty good. Just had our guys had our first day of school today, so they were all happy. First day of school, got a good practice in. I'm getting ready for Friday night.
You hear me all right, Coach, there? Still got me? Yeah, I'm going to have to do this way. All right, there we go. Yeah, first day of school today, so they're obviously, had that extra week of time away. But just talk about again how everybody is, how everything went through the off season, getting ready for the beginning here of the season with you now as the head coach, and the excitement that everybody got to experience on that fantastic game on Friday night.
Kind of leading up to that point, we've been really preaching to our guys, hey, we got to come in every day and work. It's going to be here before we know it. And lo and behold, we came into Monday last week and kids were looking at me, Coach, we play Friday, huh? And they were pretty charged up, ready to go. So, all that off-season preparation that they put in, starting in February back when I started, it was a blessing. It was pretty awesome to see how they came out and responded. Obviously, the community's rocking. I know our first game, we do it big for the kids. We have the bounce houses going. So, all of that kind of, those butterflies and jitters went away as soon as that ball was kicked off on Friday night. And it was great to see our guys respond and come out with a victory.
Now, in terms of the X's and O's, we were a little surprised with how high scoring the game was. What was your takeaway? Was that kind of the game you were expecting, or were you expecting more of the defensive slugfest like you saw last season?
To be honest with you, I knew that it was going to be a little bit of I shouldn't even say a shootout, but I thought that we were definitely going to be able to come in and score some points, and I knew they were able to put up a lot of points. I mean, I knew they had a lot of great athletes with Bobby Fadden and, the receiver as well. They had plenty of good football players there. So, to say we were going to expect a shootout, that's probably a stretch. But, when the ball starts crossing that goal line, we got to just keep answering on the offensive side of the ball. And then defensively in the second half, we decided to step it up and, not give them as many points as we did in the first half. Just kind of had to roll with the punches. So, I mean, to say it was expected, we weren't sure. But I was glad our guys responded and were able to come out and compete and get the dub, like I said. So.
We're here on Beyond the Scoreboard talking with Neshannock coach Michael Bonjavengo. I'm James Dotson with Eric Thomas, and here's Tim Continenza.
Hey, Coach, we were at the game, got a chance to see it. Most impressively, we talk about all the point scope, but let's talk about your offensive line. They actually performed extremely well under the circumstances of giving you enough time to throw the ball and then creating holes for your running game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are our big guys up front. They know I got a little nickname for them, and they know I love them to death. And I tell them, right before every game, we can't go without you guys. I love the way they responded last week in the preparation leading up to the game, having to block some different fronts and see some different looks other than what our defense was doing all summer in camp. So I had to prepare those 4 days for Mohawk, kind of switch up what they were doing. But I thought our guys responded well, especially the fact that we only had, 2 guys that really started and played a lot of football on that offensive line last season. So seeing those other 3 guys come in, step up, and play a game and communicate. I mean, they were talking all night. They were positive. They never had long faces. They didn't even look tired at times. So I was really happy to see them gel together, and hopefully that was a building block for them as the season progresses. Hopefully we get more tight-knit, on the field and communicate and continue to do what we do.
Coach, I one of the things I love about your home field is like the 17.5-mile walk from the locker room out to the football field. What did that feel like when you first, maybe not for kickoff, but like when you first got out there for warm-ups on Friday night? How different was it when you stepped out of that locker room into the bright sunshine on a Friday night, first home game, first game as a head coach for this program? Can you sort of like walk us through what was going through your mind? Did you have butterflies? Were you just sort of amped to kick the thing off? What was that like when you first stepped out of that locker room on Friday night?
I mean, I hate talking about myself, but I definitely did have some butterflies, walking out there. But then literally, as soon as I hit that gate and seen our guys out there kind of dressed up in, like I said, their costume, in their game attire, it kind of all went away. And, just had that energy, just like I was playing almost, just like I did every game as a coach, no matter where I've been coaching at. You kind of still always get them butterflies. But as soon as I hit the field, it hit me a little bit that I was, the guy that was going to be the head coach of that game, obviously. But, once I seen our guys, that kind of all left and was just back in game mode. And, everybody knows this, but football is the worst sport. I mean, you got such a long time from the time you get to the locker room till you kick the thing off. We always joke around as coaches that, it takes forever. It really does seem like an eternity till kickoff happens. So, once I seen those guys, I felt pretty good myself personally. I know they were charged up, and I was excited for the opportunity to compete on a Friday night, so I was definitely, ready to rock whenever we walked through those gates. So,
Coach, talk about Dom Cubelis. I mean, 3 touchdowns, 3 different ways. He did a lot of the special stuff for you on Friday, and of course, expecting that throughout the course of this year.
Oh, absolutely. Dom is a guy that, he's an old school type of kid, man. He puts his hard hat on every day and comes to work, whether it's practice, games, 7-on-7s, whatever it may be. Dom's ready to work. And that kid is just an awesome kid off the field. I know you guys see it a little bit, but nobody knows how nice of a kid he is, how respected he is, not just in the school, but in the community. The funny part is about his 3 touchdowns, that was the first guy I seen whenever I came out, back to that previous question. I looked at him, I said, Dom, and he was catching kickoffs. I said, Dom, you know what? Not sure if anybody's ever scored in all 3 phases. I could be wrong, but you're going to score in all 3 phases of the game tonight, offense, defense, and special teams. And he said, I got you, Coach. And lo and behold, he went out there and did it. So couldn't be happier for the way he competed on Friday night. We knew he got big play capability anytime he touches the ball. So I was really happy to see the way he performed on Friday night, and hopefully he carries it over. That's just one week and hopefully a long season. Just got to hope he continues to build off that and get better.
So Coach Bongivengo turning into Coach Nostradamus going on over here, it feels like.
Yeah, I guess so.
Coach, one final question. We'll let you get back to the family because I know, spend all the time you can with them now that practice is over for the evening especially. But talk about your game coming up, another local rival taking on Union. First time we've seen the Shannock going against Union in a number of years. But I know you and I know in Lawrence County, it's all about those local rivalries. Just talk about getting ready for that game and maybe what you've seen and expect to see from the Scotties.
I just think it's the coolest thing that, we all kind of play each other in Lawrence County. I think it creates a great atmosphere, no matter whether you're playing at home or on the road in the county. So I just think it's a great opportunity for our guys and even Union's guys, considering this week that it'll be a good, lively atmosphere. Speaking on Union, obviously Coach Kim, he's an awesome guy there. 2 years ago, a lot of those guys that were in the state finals are still on this football team. So we know they're an athletic, physical group. They're well coached. They're going to be hard-nosed football players. It's going to be a tough test, and we're excited for the opportunity. We just got to come out and play our game. Building off of last week, obviously we got to limit the turnovers and the mistakes, and the penalties going into this Friday night. But overall, like I said, we're excited for the opportunity to play another great football team with a lot of good football players over there who played a lot of football. So, I definitely think it's going to be a fun game on Friday night. But I hope our guys are ready for the challenge and ready to compete whenever that ball's kicked off at 7 p.m. up there in Union.
Coach, I know all the kids are excited to play against each other. I'll tell you one thing. I'm definitely glad I don't have to play against you anymore. We'll just leave it at that.
I appreciate that, James. Thank you, man.
Coach Bonjavengo, appreciate it.
Run around now.
Yes, we will be seeing you on Friday night up there at Sox Russo's.
Sounds good, guys. Thank you so much for having me on tonight. Have a good night.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Coach. That's Coach Michael Bonjavengo joining us here for the first live version of our Beyond the Scoreboard podcast. And yes, I'm glad I don't have to play against him anymore like we did, mainly in the middle school ages, because by the time high school, Newcastle didn't play against most of the rest of the county schools just because of the size difference. But I'll tell you what, though, I will play for him any day of the week. He's just an excited guy to talk to.
I was just going to say, always looking at the positive side, a guy who just has so much energy, and he brings that every day, and you can see that team just really, breathing in that energy and just taking it to the field. At least they did last week, and I imagine they'll do it this week with Union.
Yeah, how about that for a first game for Union? You get to play, and it's a shame that Union's not 1A still, because how massive would that game be on Friday night if Union was still a 1A team? Welcome to Week 1 Union. That'll be a lot of fun to watch.
We will be out there. Tim and I will be out there at Sox Russo's for that one of our main games of the week that we will be breaking down. We'll have the broadcast of that one. We'll also have the broadcast out at Mohawk for Mohawk against Laurel for the other game that we'll have going on Friday night. We're going to take another quick break, and we'll come back, and we're going to go across the county before we then break down the games upcoming here for Friday night, Week 1, Game 2, as we break it all down here on the Lawrence County SportsNet Beyond the Scoreboard podcast here at lcsportsnet.com.
Because coming in every day is different.
How can you not enjoy these kids coming up and hugging you and giving you these great smiles all throughout the day?
Seeing the progress that our kids make every single day is one of the reasons I love coming to school.
What should we do? We have fun.
LCAP Early Learning Centers is hiring. Help empower young minds in Lawrence County and become a superhero today. Apply at lcap.org.
Don't get left out to dry. Call the Penn Ohio Bottled Water Company for the fastest and most efficient bottled water delivery service in the area. Penn Ohio offers bottled water ranging from 16.9-ounce bottles to 5-gallon jugs, perfect for your next event or office water cooler system. Also, don't forget to ask about their custom labeling options. Visit PennOhioBottledWater.com for more information and to get a quote on their delivery services. Whether it's at home, in the office, or on the sidelines, Penn Ohio has you covered.
Back again here on Beyond the Scoreboard. I'm James Dotson with Tim Continenza and Eric Thomas. One of the features that we want to try to incorporate coming up over the course of all of fall season and then into hopefully the winter and spring season as well is to go around the county. And what the game plan is we're asking the high school students to help us. So we've been in contact with a lot of the tech departments, journalism departments, the registered sports fanatic teacher, essentially. And the game plan is that each and every Wednesday on this podcast here, 6:30 start time, that we're going to go around the county and have every school basically have a representative talk to us about what's going on in their school in terms of the the sports that don't get the notoriety that maybe they should: volleyball, soccer, etc. It's going to be fun. We have that officially starting next week for sure. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to try to get a little bit preview of what to expect. And, since I can use my Union Scotties as guinea pigs, here's just one aspect. Here's a little preview what we got going on for Union here this week.
Union Volleyball gets their season started with a non-section game Thursday against Newcastle. They start section play at Cornell on September 10th as they look to make playoffs for the 6th straight year. The golf team has been battling so far this fall. Landon Eckert led the team with a 40 in their loss to Mohawk yesterday. Union Preview Night and Pie Festival is this evening. meeting all of the fall teams for the Union Elementary, Middle, and High Schools, with senior night festivities taking place on Friday for the game against Neshannock. That's all from Scotty's County for now. For Around the County, this is Olivia Williams of Union High School reporting for LC SportsNet.
There it is, nice and easy, guys. No muss, no fuss. Just get us a little
shout out to the golf team.
Yeah, a little shout out to the golf team. Volleyball starts. They had their first game, or they have their first game tomorrow. Excuse me, there at Union. A lot of volleyball action last night. I know Mohawk was a 5-set winner in one of their games. I know Elwood City boys golf is still undefeated to start their year. So that's what we want to hear about. And there's a little preview, I guess, a little sample to work with. So thanks, Liv Williams of Union, for being our guinea pig, the first one to do it, Eric.
Yeah, that was nice. It'll be nice to hear from around the county the rest of the season. And shout out to all those teams that are out there that, sometimes they say things don't show up in the box score. It's rare to see things in a paper anymore, but luckily in town here we have one that's good enough that covers all that stuff. So it's a good feature to add, and it's a good sports community here around Newcastle, and I'm sure everybody's going to appreciate hearing about those all the rest of the season.
Before we talk about the Friday games, Tim and I, we will get to see some of those other teams. We get to check out a Wilmington soccer doubleheader tomorrow. How about that?
It's exciting. I'm actually looking forward to it. It'll be a new sport for me to cover for the first time. I've had a lot of opportunities here, and this is going to be great. I just love the idea of seeing some of these athletes get on the field, see what they can do, see what type of play they have, and just let them compete.
And we love seeing the chemistry and the camaraderie around the county, as always. Yes. Here's another example of it. So Neshannock girls didn't have enough for a team. Last year they played as a co-ed team there at Neshannock, but they are co-opted cross-district from WPIL to District 10. They were able to make it work out that they have a co-op with Wilmington. So that Wilmington team will have some Neshannock players to go along with, obviously, the Wilmington girls as they take on Fairview.
You're going to love when programs do that. Find a way to help the athlete have an opportunity to compete.
Yeah, exactly. And so we get to see them first, and then we get to see Neshannock again as Neshannock takes on Wilmington in the boys' game in the nightcap. So Wilmington, both the boys and girls, are 0-1. Fairview, the girls, are 1-0 after their first win, and the Neshannock boys had a big win last night as well. So check those out Thursday night. First game at 5 o'clock, second game at 7 o'clock here at Lawrence County SportsNet. Give a shout out to our producer, Matt Flannery. He'll be there working it as well. He's just happy. Matt's happy that the microphone isn't turned on yet. We'll get him for sure. Let's take a look at the week ahead, gentlemen, as we now have 4 games in the county. Again, the Shenango against Elwood City game has been officially canceled after all the events of yesterday. And again, our thoughts and prayers will continue to be with Wildcat Nation. I already have gotten word that there will be at least one gold out at a student section at one of the county games, again, showing that county camaraderie, which is really great to see. Elwood City, I was just informed, they are actively looking for a game. So if there is someone out there who is looking to play a game this weekend on Friday or Saturday, you can reach out to us. You can reach out to Athletic Director Kirk Agostinelli. Get a hold of anybody, and let's try to make a game happen. I know a couple years ago we were able to get that through social media when Union's Mohawk game got canceled. They were able to find Canton halfway across the state, Eric, and we were able to get a game that ended up being, 2 semifinal teams from that year.
Well, and the other thing, from an Elwood standpoint, obviously they're respective of what's going on with Shenango, but I really think that Elwood team wants to get back out on the field after last week. They want to prove that they are still going to be a championship caliber team. Doesn't matter who they play. In fact, you might even learn a little bit more about them if they get an opponent on short notice like they're trying to. But I really think that they want to be back out and kind of show that, okay, we had a tough game last week. We got through it. We figured out a way to win that thing. Let's get back on track here. Let's start showing people and let's start showing our fan base what they think this team is going to be. And it's going to have to start, and hopefully for them, it's not going to be delayed another week.
We'll keep you posted. Make sure you stay tuned on Facebook and Instagram, Twitter X as well. As we, if we get any updates, we will be sure to pass those along. The games that are scheduled and still to go. Let's start with Home game for Newcastle. They're taking on fellow 1-0 team Hopewell, as Hopewell defeated Riverside last week 38-25. Hopewell, just to get a little background on them, they forced 4 interceptions against Riverside last week, but they have a brand new quarterback, Tim, who moved to quarterback just in the preseason due to an injury, but he did well, almost 200 total yards of offense. What does Newcastle need to do defensively to improve from last week? Because that's got to be number one on Coach Mo's board.
I think obviously you got to get your front 7 involved and hopefully make some stops on first down. You want to put teams behind the sticks that's the greatest scenario, but most importantly, 1, 2, maybe 3 yards at the most, and set up second down and 8, second down and 9 situations, and then again, it's really up to the front 7 to really establish that and make plays. And I think if you can get pressure on a quarterback or get into the backfield early in the ball game, it puts pressure on your opponent's offensive line to continue to perform at a high level.
Eric, it's been a long time since Newcastle could say they had 2 wins on their resume. It's just another game, but it is a pretty big one.
It is, and you just hope that they don't really get ahead of themselves too much or think too much about last week. And to go along with Tim's point, defensively is going to be the way to set the tempo in that game. If that takes any kind of pressure off their offense to have to perform, and they can start consistently getting stops in that game, I think that's going to go a long way to helping that team get to 2-0. And just imagine, they were 1-9 last year.
And the year before. So 2 total wins in the previous 2 seasons, and they might be able to equal that on Friday night. And if they do, listen, I know we got a long way to go, and there's going to be teams that win championships and all that. It's about building culture. Just give Freddie Mazzocco Coach of the Year in that class. Seriously, if the guy gets them 2 wins in their first 2 games, and then it starts to snowball, and maybe it gets to that 5-0 like we talked about against Aliquippa last week, who knows? But he's been worth every penny, so to speak, if he gets them 2 wins in the first 2 games. Absolutely. Already, I think a lot of people are saying he's already been
I would agree.
worth every penny there in Newcastle, for sure. The other game that we have, or that we will not be covering, but the other game in the county, Wilmington going out of state, Tim, going out towards your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
1-0 Greyhounds taking on 1-0 Hubbard, Ohio. Hubbard, who defeated Brookfield last week with a high-scoring game, 49-14. I guess the mantra of good defense against good offense is what we're going to see here tonight or on Friday night.
Yeah, I think you will. Hubbard traditionally is a running team. They're built on the offensive line and working the I formation and even working in the wing a little bit. Playing Brookfield is literally the town right next to it. It's a lifelong rivalry between those 2 schools, so it means a lot to those 2 schools. And Hubbard is a team traditionally that is right in the mix of a playoff run every year in Ohio. So it'll be interesting to see. It'll be a great test for the Hounds, and I think it will be a game. I think it's good to see the cross-state rivalry once in a while, and hopefully you can build a little camaraderie between the 2 schools. And if it doesn't happen every year, which is fine, but if it happens every 2 to 5 years, that'd be wonderful.
Absolutely, and it is fun, to go. We are so close. It
really
crazy
is.
to think about how close we are across the line.
Just bringing up about Elwood City, I don't know if there's any local Ohio team that is available this week, but I have a friend of mine who knows all of that. So when I get off here, I'm gonna text him and ask him and go, hey, is there anybody that's available that might be interested? And we'll just try to hook them up if that's the case. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'll at least follow through and see what happens.
Talk about Jamie Miller a bit real quick, Eric. He had a monster first week, and this is a team that has 1 senior. He's one of the juniors, the alternate captains, going hockey style as Coach Fillion with his captains this year. Jameson certainly had a incredible first game. 3
touchdowns. What did they only limit their opponent to 119 yards, I think, in that game total. So that's, the defense is, I think, what fires for Wilmington. And that type of play early in the season travels. I don't care where you go. It doesn't matter what state you're going to. If you can play good defense, that's going to travel everywhere you go. But you're right. He had a monster game. I believe Chase Mitchell-Tree had a big game in that the other night too. So that's a good sign to see for Wilmington. And I like the fact that they're going to get on a bus, and it might not be the longest trip, but if they do make a run and go to Mechanicsburg to play for the state championship, they're probably going to have the longest trip of anybody in the entire state to get there. So get the team on a bus, get them to travel, kind of get them acclimated with, time and having set times to get on a bus and travel for a game. That's something that you keep in the back of your mind as the season goes on, is that, hey, we've done this before. We have a routine before. We know what we can do. They've been to Hershey, obviously, but it's in this season, it's a different set of players. So I like the idea of throwing them on a bus and taking them across state lines and having to have a bit of a travel wrinkle early in the season.
You mentioned Chase Mitchell-Tree. 25 carries, 157 yards. Jamie Miller getting the 2 rushing touchdowns, but Mitchell-Tree definitely the workhorse. Oh, by the way, he caught a 49-yard touchdown as well. I think that's the key, too, knowing that offense, showing that they can throw it and that they can give that wrinkle as needed. And just because Tim asked whether they've done it before, yes, they've actually played Brookfield twice in their history. A 30-0 defeat to Brookfield.
Brookfield or Hubbard?
Oh, I looked up Brookfield by accident. Of course I did that.
Look at Britannica over here.
Look at that.
That's all right. Again, another really neighboring school right across the border, so it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, Hubbard not on my radar, but you ruined my fun of they are 1-1 in their 2 games against Brookfield. Not that matters. Not
Surprises
that a game
me that we don't see more teams from this area go to Ohio and play early season, though. I know it doesn't count, but it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
See, it counts in Ohio, which is great, because I don't know if everybody knows, but in Ohio, they only count your wins.
Right.
Because it's a point system. So it doesn't matter if you necessarily lose a game playing someone up or down or across the state lines. And that's, one of the advantages of the point system that they use in Ohio versus, a committee to choose.
That's how they should do it. Yeah. They should do it by points. I think that's something that they need to revisit somewhere down the line. But, why not take advantage of that? There's some quality teams that are within 100 miles of here that you could schedule. I'm not saying go the whole 100 miles, but you can pop right across the border and find probably 6-7 teams that are worthy of playing.
I believe the WPIL, don't quote me on this, week 0, you can make that distinction from the WPIL. You can say, hey, we already have somebody set up from a different state, by absolutely no problem. But I believe once you're in week 1, the way it is set up right now is that WPIL must do the scheduling, and they schedule WPIL against WPIL, maybe a crossover with a city league or an independent, maybe, but it's basically district against district, which I agree with you. If you can find a good non-conference opponent, why does it have to be from District 7? Make it District 8, make it District 9. If you want to play somebody from Philadelphia, if you want to play somebody from California, why should we be restricted?
Yeah.
Well, Mars went down to Florida and played a game on well, it got pushed to Saturday, but and ended up winning down there. The monster game down there against Boone, but yeah, I'm all for the cross. We saw that a lot on the eastern side of the state last week. Bishop McDevitt, a favorite in 5A. They played a team out of Maryland. Saw a lot of early season matchups. The week 0 thing, I hate the term week 0, but I think we need to see there's a gap somewhere that was created in the state of Pennsylvania, and where it used to be this powerhouse high school football franchise, it's now probably, if you look at the top 10 high school football states in America, Pennsylvania is probably not even in the top 10.
Yeah.
Georgia's been in there longer now. Bama's coming up. Louisiana, the southern schools, southern states rather. Florida, of course, California, Texas. I love Ohio football. Experienced it for a season. Really enjoyed it. But just test yourself against some of these other teams. I want to see the more of the Mars going down to Florida and teams playing other teams from other states. I think that's more of a challenge. We know what happens, or we kind of have an expectation of what happens with teams within, but go play somebody out of state.
Especially around here. I'd much rather take a 20-minute drive across the border as one of the teams rather than being given a non-section game against West Green. Nothing against West Green and Green County, but why do I want to drive 2 hours for a game?
I'm sure the community would rather go a short distance itself. And, we know many of the communities, the support that they get is huge.
We have an all-star game in the state that's predicated, 2 of them actually, because there's still a Pennsylvania-Ohio game.
I was going to mention the Big 33.
Right, on playing other states. Why don't we just do that during the regular season and more?
Well, this just quickly turned into, hey, WPIL, are you listening to us? We'd love to see that possibility. Won't happen this year, but maybe down the road. Wilmington, again, traveling to Hubbard, Ohio for that game coming up on Friday night, 7 o'clock start. The two games that we will be on the call for, a couple more county versus county matchups. How about that? We actually had 3 scheduled for this week against Shenango. Elwood will not be played on Friday night, will not be played at all here this week. The other 2 that we will have, though, Neshannock at Union. And let's start with the 2 0-1 teams, Laurel at Mohawk. 2 teams that are, they need a good bounce back for sure after that. Both teams having the week 0 defeat. Eric, you'll be on the call for that one. Just let me not that one needs it more than the other, but from what you've seen on the tape, do you feel like one of these teams needs just to have the good bounce back week more than the other one?
Well, I think Laurel needs to know for sure that their offense is going to be able to hang with somebody who can put up points. We expected last week to see more of a high-scoring game. We actually thought the game that Tim and Lee had, we thought we were going to get that style game on Friday night, and they might have the tractor pull, and it was the other way around. And where I think Laurel has to find out a couple things in this game. Number one, can Lucas Santini win a game for him? And it's not just because of the interception at the end of the game. He actually had a pretty good game last Friday. He was 10 of 17. He threw for 129 yards. And he did come up with the big plays late in the game, made a couple of really nice throws, especially the one to Xavier Johnson on the first down where they had the penalty tacked onto it that set them up for the game-tying touchdown. So we got a hint of him really having taken that next step at a quarterback position. I need to know, and I think Laurel probably wants to know, can we turn the ball over to this kid and let him win a game? Because all the other pieces for this Laurel team appear to be there right now. They have a really physical defensive line, a very good freshman in the middle of that in Tyler Fuchs. They have a pretty good offensive line, and they have a lot of pieces that they can fill in around there. Carlson, Faulkner, all those guys are so good at what they do and what they ask of them that when you have all those pieces there, I want to know that the guy that's distributing the ball to him is going to be able to carry them if they need that and not have to rely on Carlson. And I think that's why that throw at the end of the game to set up the touchdown against Elwood City was a big moment for him. Even though he threw the pick in the end zone, it's still a big moment that he made that throw and trusted his arm to get that ball out there, and they got a big first down and then a penalty tacked onto it. I think Laurel needs it a little bit more than Mohawk does. I really do, because I think the way that Mohawk ran the ball last week and the way Fadden just slung it everywhere, if they have to score 50 points in a game to beat somebody, they're going to just say, okay, fine, we'll do it.
Between the passing game and what they were able to really use the ends arounds that we've seen traditionally from a Mohawk, they got a really high power offense. They're going to have, it's going to be a challenge for any team, I think, to hold them down. So yeah, if you're playing them, you better expect to have to put up some points to compete in that game.
Great matchup up front, too, between the offensive line or defensive line for either side going against the other, because Mohawk plays that 5-man front. That's going to be the matchup to watch up front, I think.
Here's a Laurel factoid for you. So the last 6 seasons, they have had 5 of those seasons with a 1,000-yard rusher. Twice, they've had a pair of 1,000-yard rushers in the same year. Look at the contrast just from last year to this year. Week 0 last year, 373 rushing yards. On Friday, 49 rushing yards. That, I think, is the big key. They got to get more success in that running game to be successful, not only in that game against Mohawk, but all year long, I think. That game, again, 7 o'clock start from Warrior Stadium. Again, Tim Continenza not at that one. It's Eric Thomas with Lee Moan there for that one. Tim will be joining me at Sox Russo's for the other game. Union hosting Neshannock. Before we break down the game, first game of the year for Union, and it is senior night for Union. Just want to get your thoughts on that, because I think it's a interesting idea that I think people are starting to come around to.
When I first heard this a couple of years ago, I was like, really? But now more I've gotten into it, I really think it's a great idea because most of the players are healthy. And most of the players are excited about this season, and the family and the friends and the community really wants to get behind a team early in the season. So why not celebrate the seniors early in the season and move on? And instead of traditionally being the last game of the year at home, well, make it the first game and really, make it a special event for the entire year for the senior class versus just the final game.
If COVID did one thing that helped us, because a lot of schools, remember in 2020 that played, did that because they weren't sure if they weren't going to have another game the rest of the year. So everybody, at least where I was working back then, said, no, our senior night's going to be the opening night or the first home game. And I think it was actually a really good idea, and that's a good point. I mean, get them out there. And then plus, at the end of the season, depending on where your team stands, if you need to win the game or it's a big rivalry, you don't want all that extra pomp and circumstance surrounding that. Just line up, play the game. Those kids are going to be in a mode enough, and then you're going to delay that by 20 or 30 minutes because of a celebration. Or if your team is the opposite direction of the opposite end of the spectrum and say they're like 1-8, they probably just want to get the heck off the field. So they, it's not going to make a difference, one way or another if you do it either time. I think they just want that away from the last game and just do it the opening night.
You saw that actually on the basketball court last year, Eric, with Union, right?
Yep.
Because they started their seniors, which Coach Stanley has always said he wants to start his seniors, but it kind of messed up the flow early on in the game, and they played from behind that entire game. So
that was a risky. I remember that well. That was a risky night.
Yeah, well, it ended up meaning something like you said. So, get it out of the way early. This is a non-conference game that in the end technically doesn't mean anything, but it means a lot, guys. It's county versus county. But it will also be a chance too. One coach actually said it to me of, who's to say one of my seniors might not be able to play on senior night because he's hurt midway through the season. Everybody's healthy. First game of the year. Let's go celebrate them and let them all get a chance to play. I think it's a cool idea, and I'm hoping that you see more of that kind of celebration early on in the year. Now, as for the X's and O's between Neshannock and Union, besides the obvious of saying improve on the defense, Tim, what more can you say for Neshannock from putting up 40-plus points in week 1 or in week 0, game 1
I think
move on to?
We touched the coach earlier at turnovers. Offensively, they had some turnovers, and I think that's what they're going to talk about all week, going into the game, securing the ball, not making mental mistakes that turned over the ball. They had a punt where they went downfield and, just a silly touching of the ball at the wrong time cost them, 45 yards and a new drive. So there's no need for that type of stuff. So I think that's really what it's about, is cleaning up some of the mental mistakes that cause turnovers and physically be more prepared when you have the ball to prevent turnovers.
I'm going to echo this point with the turnover thing, because with a Union team that we're not 100% sure what's there offensively, so they're going to want some help. They're going to want to make a special teams play, block a punt, something like that that's going to give them a short field to work with. Listen, they're going to have guys. We know that they're going to have guys to make plays. We just don't know how it's going to look compared to last year when they had Braylon Thomas and all those dudes that were up front. We think they might have one of the best players on the field in Jameel Mitchell, who I can't wait to see later this season. In fact, I think next week you and I, or 2 weeks, we have them.
Yeah.
But don't give them any momentum whatsoever. Neshannock, that is, do not give Union any momentum whatsoever. Do not give them a short field. Do not give them any kind of boost early in the game that sets their offense up. If you are Neshannock, I think it really has to be just all gas in this game. Like, you just got to push the tempo, put the onus on them to try to score, try to have them match you. And if Union has the talent to do it, I'm sure they do, then they do it. If they don't, then you've walked in there and picked up a nice road win.
Yeah, and especially playing, like you said, at home for Union, that's, I think, a big part of it right there, of don't let them get any momentum if you're in Neshannock is definitely the key. We know we'll see Lucas Stanley behind center. We know we'll see Maddox Thompson. He's back as one of the top receivers. Again, he will not be playoff eligible, but those are going to be the two weapons most likely to see the most with. Other than that, it's a lot of unknowns on the playmakers side of the ball, people we haven't seen a lot of just because of everybody who's been there before. But hey, it's a chance for young guys to step up, right?
It is, and it's a really good chance for Coach Nee, who now gets sort of the ability to mold his own program and mold it. He had an all-world talent at quarterback. I mean, that we saw him do things that other guys, especially in this area, have not done.
And no one's ever had a 1,000 season in the regular season in Lawrence County. Yeah, and I
mean, just made it look at times. Remember how banged up he was in that Mohawk game last year, and now he just made it look so easy, even though the kid could barely walk when he was coming off the field. But Braylon Thomas was a special kid. But now Coach Nee gets to mold all these guys, and sort of we see what kind of coach he is. We know what his pedigree is. We know what background he's come from. But now we get to see him sort of unleash his expertise on these kids and how he gets that across to basically a new crop of guys and tries to keep that program where it's been I think is going to be a lot of fun to watch. They have a chance to make a big statement on Friday night, 100% for sure.
Yeah, starting with Neshannock and then the now number 1 ranked team in 2A, Washington. Those are your 2 non-conference games. Talk about getting thrown in the fire, Tim. That's the way he wants it, though.
Yeah, that's exactly. He loves to challenge his team. He loves to put them in situations that they have to survive in, and not just survive, but thrive in. And I think, that's, it's what most football coaches want. They love the competition, and they love to be the surprise talk of the week. And we've seen Union do that the last 2 years. It's a brand new team, some new faces, some old faces. We'll see exactly what they bring to the field on Friday night.
Well, we're glad to deliver you these previews each and every week here on Wednesday nights. Our Beyond the Scoreboard podcast. It's delivered by Penn Ohio Bottled Water. Let them do the heavy lifting and bring refreshing water to your door. And with that, our final thought of the evening, gentlemen. A word to all those players out there. Please drink plenty of Penn Ohio Bottled Water between now and Friday. Eric, we didn't have a whole lot of cramping in our game.
There was a lot more in the other game. I mean,
especially in the third and fourth quarter.
Break.
Yeah, and that's they had to take a couple different hydration breaks in that game, and the officials just recognized it. And they says, you know what, we're gonna. Maybe it wasn't even scheduled, but we're going to let both teams go to the sideline and get hydrated and come back out. And so it acted like an extra timeout for both teams. But you know what? You got to take advantage of it if it does happen. And with the weather the way it is, hydration is going to be a huge part of both teams. You don't want any type of soft tissue injury where it can linger for the next 4 or 5 weeks, and you're going to miss most of your season. So get out there, make sure you're hydrated, make sure you're hydrating throughout the game, and hopefully good things will happen for all the athletes out there.
Hey, that goes for us as well. Remember, we're outdoors. We're in the elements on Friday, both at Union and Mohawk. So stay hydrated, boys. That goes for the entire crew as well. One final thought from each of you of what you're most excited to see for this week in particular, whether it's at our game or one of the other games across the county.
Well, I'll say this: I'm really interested in seeing, Lucas Stanley at quarterback for Union, and we know the physical talent that he is. But here was a guy who was playing receiver, now going to be at quarterback, and let's see how he handles reading the offense and making plays, either running the ball or throwing it.
I kind of have to ride that theme and go with Bobby Fadden at quarterback because just what I watched from last week's game, I mean, throwing it all over the field. But I really think that the area that I want to watch the most on Friday night, the Mohawk offensive line was a lot better than I thought they would be. And they do have some pieces that are back there too, but you lose some guys up front like Alex Chapman and Scooter McPherson, like some of those big guys that were stalwarts there. And they still have a lot of building blocks. Dakota Crawford, Dylan Sumney, all those guys that are back. Dan Monaco, but they played a lot better against a pretty physical team than I thought they were going to in week 1. I thought that might actually be a weak spot for Mohawk. I was wrong. I can't wait to see them up front up close on Friday night. And
that's going to be a good challenge, as you said, against a Laurel team that is also very physical in the trenches. The one thing I'm looking for most out of all of it, I think, is Laurel. I want to see them get to that ground game and utilize whether it is Jackson Saunders more, whether it is Braden Faulkner more in the backfield, either one of them or a combination of both, but not to give up on the run and to keep using what they've done best for all these years.
Shorten the game.
Yeah, well, they certainly did that. What do we have? Only 7 drives for each team in the game?
Something is 8 drives or whatever it was total. Yeah, like in the first half, I think there was only 8 total possessions in that.
So that's what we're looking for, and we're going to be looking forward to all those games. Remember to stay tuned on Friday night. We'll have all the scoreboard updates on the bottom line of each of our games, and, of course, on Twitter as well throughout the course of the evening. Another great round in the books. Eric Thomas, Tim Continenza, thanks again for joining us, making the trips across state lines or coming up north. Appreciate it, guys.
Absolutely. We'll see you next week.
Looking forward to next week.
Absolutely. And thanks again to our producer, Matt Flannery, getting us all going with the camera live on video for the first time as well here at lcsportsnet.com. Beyond the Scoreboard podcast. Glad you can join us. We'll again be doing this each and every Wednesday evening beginning approximately at 6:30. Delivered again by Penn Ohio Bottled Water. Big thanks to them. Thanks to all of our sponsors, including our powering sponsor, LCAP. This is Beyond the Scoreboard, Lawrence County Podcast, brought to you by Penn Ohio Bottled Water.